We're going to talk about negotiating your way to success. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an attorney, professor, author of 5 books, and I have two radio shows. One is called Fighting for Love, Turn Conflict into Collaboration, and the other one is called Privacy Piracy, and it's about privacy in the information age. And I said a few minutes ago that I teach leadership skills, conflict management, negotiation, and mediation. And my practice is mediation of business, employment, contracts, family. And I'm on the panel for the Orange County Superior Court and also on the Judicial Committee. So you can find out more at conflicthealing.com and marifrank.com. And so I remember many, many years ago, probably about 30 years ago, when Chester Carras was just very young, that I took this class, and I remember he said, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And we all know that you really have to speak up for yourself and be assertive and negotiate what you want, because you're not just going to get it. People can't read your mind either. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you the 6 keys to power in negotiation. I love to use acronyms. So the acronym of POWER is what we're going to be using. Next one is the skill of effective listening and why it's so important. And then CPR, to breathe life into your negotiations. C stands for contact, or your facts and the issues. P stands for the procedure that you're going to use. And R stands for the relationship that you're going to have with the people that you're negotiating with. And then I'm going to give you a success agenda that if you use that, that really helps to kind of know ahead of time where you're going. So, your entire day is filled with a negotiation, whether it's with your kids. I negotiate with my golden retriever, my husband, and of course, all of my clients, the court. Sometimes you have to negotiate with the clerks who don't get things right. Ann and I negotiate all the time with the clerks at the Superior Court. So just so many people. That's what we do for a living, but that's what we do in our lives, whether you do that for a living or not. You're negotiating all the time, every time you're communicating. So basically, we're going to talk about the 2 types of negotiation. You've got the positions based, which is you claim only for yourself self-value, or you create a mutual gain, a mutual value. And if you remember reading many years ago, Getting to Yes with Bill Urey and Roger Fisher, I trained in their negotiation program at Harvard many, many years ago, and have had Bill Urey on my radio show. And he talks about expanding the pie. And if you are claiming only, my way or the highway, it's going to be rough to get a deal. You're going to end up going to court if you can't go and say, all right, how can I get your needs met and you get my needs met? So creating mutual value is, of course, we want to get what's best for ourselves and our clients, but at the same time, we need to step into the shoes of the other person and say, what is it that they want? And find out. So second one is in positional, we have extreme positions. You start out really high, sometimes so high that the other party wants to walk away. When you are talking about the interest space, you're going to find out what are their interests and then appeal to those for a mutual gain. Just because I want one thing doesn't mean that the other party can't get what they want, because it might be very different. It's like the old story of the orange, where 2 kids are fighting over an orange. And then the mediator comes in and says, well, what do you want the orange for? What are your interests? And one child says, well, I want to eat the orange, the inside. And the other one says, well, I want the peel because I'm going to use it for my art project. So it's not mutually exclusive. Okay, then we've got the relationship issue. In position-based, obviously, a lot of people will ignore the relationship. In Orange County or wherever you live up in Northern California, people get to know you. So if they know that you are not a person to be dealt with, that can be trusted, if you ignore the relationship that you have with everybody you're negotiating with, they're going to ignore you. It's not going to be good for the future. And, it's a small world. Whereas if you are embracing the relationship and trying to enable it and increase a more positive relationship, you're going to build trust. And if someone doesn't trust you, they aren't going to want to do business with you. Okay, the next one is the emotional tactics. Yeah, and surprises. Ann and I were just talking about one of the people that a challenge that I have with someone that I'm negotiating with. And that person uses emotional tactics. They use threats. They use surprises. That doesn't really give a lot of trust to the relationship. So my goal is to use reasonable methods, but to call them on these emotional tactics. I let them know if they are not using a trusting type of relationship. Next one is when you have a positional base, you offer few concessions. Now, when you're doing interest-based, you don't have to give away the store, which some people think that they have to do. Instead, you're going to have a trade-off. Well, I'm willing to do this for you, but I really need this for me. So we never give up something unless we get something in return. And I have to train my negotiation and mediation clients that, look, it's okay to give up something that isn't of great value to you, but only do it if you get something of like value in return. So that's something that I always keep at the top of my thoughts. Next one, win-lose. If you want to have a win-lose, you can go to court, of course. But if you have a win-lose in a relationship that you're negotiating, if you have somebody lose and they feel like a loser, then that agreement or that settlement is going to fall apart. So we want to have what they call a win-win, but actually it's not a win-win. It's a mutual gain. I got what I needed. You got what you needed. We can shake hands about it, and we can, deal with it. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you guys to write in the chat box, and just unmute yourself if you don't know where it is or if you need some help. But I want to make it interactive to keep you awake while you're hopefully eating lunch, or at least having some interaction with me. So what do you think is a successful negotiation? You can even unmute yourself if you want and just tell me. So anybody want to just write in the chat box? Anne, I can't read it when I've got the
Yeah, I got it, don't worry. But
okay.
No one's typing yet.
Okay, so would somebody please write something in? What's a successful negotiation? Anybody? Well, I guess
both parties feel like when they leave that they've gotten what they can live with.
Exactly. Perfect. Anything else in a negotiation that's successful? Yeah, that's a great definition. So I have some things here. Success occurs when you come to an agreement, first of all, that meets your needs, which is what you were talking about. I think that was Kay, right? Was that Kay?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that both parties can leave and feel good about it. So if my needs are met, I'm going to feel good about it when I leave. Also, when it satisfies all the parties' interests, because needs are one thing and interests are something even deeper. So if everybody's interests are met, then we're going to get a deal. If I know that I have, let's say, for example, worked out a deal where I can still have a business relationship with somebody, that's good for me. And somebody else might want to have money and have a relationship that works. So if everybody's interests are met, we're okay. And it enables the relationship to be respectful, because if people have a negotiation where it's win-lose, the person who is acting in that positional way is going to destroy a lot of the relationship, and there isn't going to be a lot of respect for each other. Respect is key to having a positive resolution. Okay, so what are the attributes of a successful negotiator? Would somebody either yell out or put something in? What do you think? What's at least one attribute of somebody who's a good negotiator, a successful one? Anybody?
They're level-headed.
They're level-headed.
So they're not they're not emotional about the issues.
Right. They're going to be logical. They're going to be reasonable. Great. Anything
Amy,
else?
Amy Williams said that they listen to each other.
They
Or
listen to
side.
each other. Perfect. Yeah. If you don't listen, you're not going to get a deal, right? Great. Anything else? Let's see. How about Neil? Can you negotiate all the time? What's an attribute of a successful negotiator?
Well, sometimes parties can walk away when they're more or less equally happy. Unfortunately, we all have run into situations where everybody walks away equally unhappy.
Right, right.
Right?
Yeah, a successful negotiator is one that makes it so people are going to be happy, right? Okay, so here are some of the ones that came to mind for me, but all of you are right about those are all important attributes. So what came to my mind was number one is for them to get into a negotiation, they're really going to have to know the facts, the issue, and really prepare. Because if you walk into a negotiation and you're not prepared, it's like going into an exam and not studying, and you're not going to be prepared and you're not going to do a good job and you're going to be, speaking off the top of your head and not really have a logical approach. That's when you might turn out to be, something acting in a very negative or explosive manner, like Kay was talking about. Keep your head level. You can keep level if you know what you're talking about. Okay, they display confidence and courtesy. So if you're not courteous with each other, then, I know for me, if I'm negotiating with someone who's not courteous, I don't want to be in that negotiation. And it's going to cause me to be more standoffish and not engage as well. And we want to be confident. The only way that I know to be confident is that I've done my homework and I'm prepared. And you were talking before about listening, Amy, about they listen to each other. Absolutely. If I listen, I'm going to understand where they're at. So if I don't listen, I don't know where they're coming from. And when I get the answer, it gives me power to meet their needs and meet mine and kind of understand where they're at. Because if I don't listen to them, I have no idea where they're at. Then ask open-ended questions. So I need to say, well, if they tell me I have to have, 500,000 for this, then you ask them, okay, help me understand more about that. Why is that the number that you've chosen? Why is that number the one that's the bottom line? Give me a response. And that helps me learn what they're thinking. It also helps me to know if they're really just blowing steam or what. Okay, show a positive, solution-oriented attitude. Obviously, we prefer to work with people that are nice people. Right? Who wants to work with somebody who acts in a real negative, nasty way toward us? It's just human nature. So if we show a positive, solution-oriented, like I know I'll walk into a mediation and I'll have people in the room, and the first thing I'll say to them is, thank you for engaging in this collaborative process. I feel certain from just speaking to each of you that we're going to get a deal today. So I set forth that positive approach where everybody is knowing that I'm solution oriented and I'm asking for them to be in the same way. And then if you've read Getting to Yes or Getting Past No, they talk about separate the person for the problem, be easy on the person, tough on the issues. That's what this is about. Say, I know that, this has nothing to do with you personally, but this issue arose between us. So you kind of separate the person from the problem and you treat people very gently and very courteously and very respectfully. But as far as the problem's concerned, you're not going to be easy on the problem. You're tough on the problem and stick to your guns on the problem, but separate that so that the person doesn't feel attacked. And then be trustworthy. So if you say, I'm going to get you this proposed agreement on such and such a day, get it there or call them up, or just say what you're going to do and then be accountable for what you said you were going to do, because otherwise you're not going to have trust. And this person that I'm going to be dealing with hasn't been as trustworthy, so I have to call him on it and say, I've been upfront. In fact, I had to do this today. I said, I've been upfront, no surprises, and I have been courteous, and I really am grateful for you to do the same and be reciprocal. So I did actually get a response because of that. So that was interesting. And then be creative. Creativity resolves issues to achieve a mutual gain. So we have to think outside of the box. If we walk in with, this is my position, and we haven't thought of a lot of options and getting creative, then we're not going to get a deal. We have to engage the other party to get creative. Let's think outside the box. For me, when I'm in mediation and parties have been in litigation and they come from the Superior Court and they've been talking about positions the entire time, I'll tell them, okay, so let's go beyond the positions. What do you think will work for the other side? If I'm in caucus, what do you think will work for the other side? And what might you do that will help to make this work so we can get a deal? So you have to start thinking, what else could you agree to? Okay, so what must you have for other people to accept your proposal? So again, I'm going to ask you guys to engage with me. What must you have, or what must you do for other people to accept your proposal? Anybody have an idea? Well, all right, I won't put you on the spot. Maybe this one was a little confusing. So you must have power. You must have influence, right? People won't want to do a deal with you unless you have influence, unless they think that you deserve their time and their energy to engage with you. They don't want to deal with you unless you have power. If you don't have leverage, why should they negotiate with you? Okay, so I love acronyms. So this is an easy way to remember. Power, what gives you power? P stands for preparation. What does it mean to prepare? And that's the CPR I'm going to show you in just a couple minutes. C stands for content. That means facts, that you have your facts together. It means that you know the issues, you know your issues, you know their issues. That's content, and you do your homework on it. So again, I had to do a lot of homework for this upcoming negotiation. That's my personal negotiation with someone I do business with. I had to do a lot of work to get together all the facts, all the issues, so that I have the power to negotiate and get a mutual gain and make sure that my interests are met. Okay, so P stands for procedure. So where are we going to meet? What am I going to have? So when I have a mediation, I'm going to give you an example. When I mediate, I make sure that I have in the background, I have soft music, I have food, I have drink, not alcohol, but I have drinks, and I have, I kind of tell them that when you resolve this, you're going to get a gift, and I have a gift. So they have some incentive to resolve. And then R for relationship. If I've had a great relationship with the people that I'm negotiating with, I'm going to kind of emphasize that. Like, gosh, we've had a great relationship for a long time, and I want to keep it that way. So let's work through this together. We've gone through a lot together. We can make it. If I've had a difficult relationship, then I'll bring that up too. We've had our challenges before, but let's put them aside. Let's talk about this. I know we can work this out, and I know that we can build a bridge of understanding with each other. Okay, options. We talked about that just a second ago. How can we make the agreement work and be acceptable to all? We've got to look for options. So if I ask a lot of open-ended questions like, what's most important to you? So when people call me and they they're interested in mediation, I'll say to them, what's most important to you and your client? What's most important? What is the bottom line? And I don't mean about money. I'm talking about, is it to be free of stress? Is it to go on with their business? What is it? And once I know that, then we can come up with options for a mutual gain. W is worthiness. Okay, what has trust got to do with it? And EI, which is emotional intelligence. If I don't like the person that I'm dealing with, if I feel they are not truthful, if I feel that they have, acted and misrepresented, I am going to have less trust in them. Okay, so I myself have to show that I'm worthy. I have to be honest. I have to make sure that I am fulfilling what I said I was going to fulfill. So EI gets back to what Kay was talking about. You can't be all crazy and start yelling and screaming, which I've had that happen in mediation where one party would just start yelling at the other party because they hadn't really prepared. So EI is your emotional intelligence, which takes you to recognize, okay, yeah, I'm not happy or I'm really angry about the offensiveness of this person, but I'm going to separate the person from the problem, and I'm going to focus on logic, and I'm going to focus on my own calm. And I have a whole course that I teach on emotional intelligence and how to deal with those emotions, because the truth of the matter is every one of us gets angry. The amygdala in your brain, which are these two almond-shaped organs, they get fired when you feel offended, when you feel attacked, okay? It's automatic. You don't have any choice about it. It's your fight, flight, or freeze response. So when you learn how to get calm before you respond, you don't react crazy, then you'll have your emotional intelligence. And then no matter what they say to you, you don't have to explode or you don't have to react. And that was exactly what Kay was talking about. A successful negotiator doesn't lose it. Okay. E is your energy. Okay, how does your energy and how does your enthusiasm and how does your approach help the negotiation? So, for example, if I were in mediation, my approach would be different than it is right now. Okay, I would be more low-key, act more calm. What I'm doing with you is I want to excite you about this. So my energy is passion. My energy is excitement, so that you enjoy this webinar and that it makes sense to you and you can use some of the tools. But if I were in mediation, I would not use that because I would be like a bulldozer overrunning people. So I need to step back and really have an energy that is positive, but is calm and that is receptive and really listens to the other people. Okay, so our energy should change. We all get excited. If we're going on vacation, we're excited. We, feel up. And if we're at a funeral, of course, we're going to be more subdued and sad. But if we're in a negotiation, we want to be engaging, but not overwhelming. Okay, relationship. Oh, this is so important. When you think about people that you've dealt with, that you've had great negotiations, whether it's been attorneys or whether it's been realtors or whomever you've been dealing with in negotiation, if you've had a positive relationship, then, that helps you to get a deal. If you say to someone, which I've done this when I've dealt with people that have been in negotiation with me before, I go, gosh, I remind them, remember when we had this case and we resolved it and how good we felt and how happy our clients were? Well, that's like putting money in the bank, okay? That really helps for the future. So, and if we haven't, again, we need to rebuild it and say, those days are over. We are going to have a great deal here. Okay, so relationship is key if you don't have a good relationship. And also because we are in a community, it's a small world. if we, destroy bridges of understanding, it's going to come back to bite us. And if we don't have a good relationship with our clients and we can't negotiate our fees with them or whatever, then what happens? They're going to go on Yelp or they're going to go on Avo, and that is going to destroy our relationship with possible future clients. So relationship is key. So if you have these power skills, which I'm sure you do, then if you remember, have I remembered to prepare? Have I really thought about options before I walk into a negotiation? Am I creating a better relationship? If you remember these 6 things, it'll help you to have power in your negotiation. Okay, so what do you think is one of the most important skills in negotiation? What's a skill? Anybody? Blurt out. We're just a small group.
Good communication.
Communication, yes. If you can't communicate, then you're obviously not going to get anywhere. Anything else?
Listening.
Listening, yes. If you don't listen, you're not going to know what they need. Perfect. Anything else? Okay, so listening, which we just heard, is really a key issue. This is probably, from my perspective, is the most important skill because it gives me power. And when I'm in any kind of negotiation or mediation, I have to listen to each party so that I can reframe back or feedback what they said so they know that I understood, because I'm there to facilitate a solution. So negotiation key is listening. All right. So why? It gives you information to understand the other person's needs or the other party's needs. It demonstrates respect. I think there's nothing worse than someone who's constantly interrupting you and doesn't let you even say your piece. That when you listen to someone, it really shows that you are respectful of them. And then it legitimizes the speaker. Now, that doesn't mean that we agree just because we listen. I mean, we all know that. But at least if we listen, then we're respecting and we are showing that they have the right and it's legitimate for them to say what they're thinking. Okay? Whether or not we agree, it doesn't matter. Okay, it increases trust. If I listen to you, you're going to trust me more because you're going to know that I understand you. And then it sets a tone for collaboration and for problem solving. I listen to you, and then it fosters a reciprocal, respectful listening. So I'm speaking and you really listen, then when it's your turn, then it's reciprocal. I'm going to want to really listen to you. And when people are in negotiation with me and I've really listened to them and then they start interrupting me, I will stop right there and say, I gave you the courtesy of really listening to you. I would really appreciate that being reciprocal, because sometimes people don't want to do that anyway, but you kind of call them on it. I listened to you. I ask that you listen to me. Okay? And I just want to go back on that for a second, because if you listen just to respond, you're going to miss a lot. So you have to kind of like take a breath and let it go. And if you want to take notes of what you're saying, what they're saying, you could say, which I do all the time in mediation. I say, you know what, I'm going to take notes because I really think what you're saying is important. So I'm going to look at you, but I'm going to write, and then I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to make sure that I understand. So I might say, I missed something. Could you please clarify for me? So how do we increase our power to listen? Sometimes it's really hard, right? It's really hard to listen, especially if it's something you don't want to hear, or especially if somebody is aggressive or nasty. You think, oh, I don't want to hear this. But if you force yourself to listen, then you're going to get pearls of wisdom, and you're going to get understanding that you can use to get what you want. Okay, so how do you increase your listening power? So I have another acronym, NEARS. So anyway, just tell me, anybody, what do you do to make yourself listen? Anybody? Come on.
Shut up.
Exactly. You know, you stop, you shut up, you don't say anything. What else do you do?
You have eye contact.
Perfect. Eye contact. Then they know that you're really with them. That's right. Anything else?
Amy said lean forward.
Yes, you lean in, and instead of just sitting back with your arms crossed, like, I don't know if you can see me, instead of that, you go, oh, you lean in, like, okay, I'm leaning into what's important. Okay, here's NEARS. This is one of my crazy acronyms. So N stands for neutral, non-judging, and you focus. And this is like, okay, no matter what, I'm going to listen without judging. I'm not going to judge. I can judge later. I don't have to judge right now. I'm going to be neutral. I'm going to try and hear where they're coming from and step into their shoes so I get it. Maybe I see the world differently, but I'm going to try and listen from their perspective. Sometimes I'll say in mediation, I'll say, if I were in your shoes, I'd probably feel exactly the same way. I can get it. I understand where you're coming from. This is what I heard you say, and this is where you're coming from. Yeah, that doesn't mean I agree with it. It does not mean I agree with it. Okay, E, which is what you were just talking about. I think it was Amy who said, eye contact. Eye contact shows that we are respectful, we're encouraging them, we're empathizing if we need to. Doesn't mean we agree, we can empathize. A stands for abstaining from interruptions. And this is like Neil said, shut up. Okay, you're abstaining from saying anything. You're just not going to interrupt. If you are afraid you're going to say, forget something, you can take a note. All right, just take a note and you can say something later. But this drives me crazy. I tell people in mediation, I say, if they've got their phone and they're trying to text and they say, I'm listening, as they're texting or something, I just have kind of a rule for mediation. Everybody put your phone on silent or on vibrate or whatever it is, and put your phone over there. We're not going to look at the phone. So we try not to multitask because we really can't do that. Our brain cannot really listen to learn and understand if we're multitasking, even though we all do it. I have to stop myself and say, what am I doing? I'm not really listening. Okay. R stands for respectful attitude. And we talked a minute ago about calm energy. If I am fidgeting, okay, and sitting back like this instead of leaning in, like Amy was saying, or I think it was Amy, then if I'm not doing that, then they're not going to feel heard anyway, right? They're not going to feel that I'm listening. They're going to think, okay, well, they're just giving me lip service, but they're really not listening. So that respectful attitude and calm energy. And finally, the way they really know I've been listening is if I summarize and clarify. So what I try to do, and this is, a mediation skill, but I use it in negotiation. I'll say, what I think I heard you say is this. You really need to whatever it is, and you need to do that by such and such a date. Did I get it right? And they might say, no, Mari, I said that I need it by such and such a date. Not by, December 25th. I need it by January 25th. Oh, well, thank you for clarifying. So for me to give them feedback of what they said, to summarize what they said, and to clarify, not only does it show understanding, but it helps me not to assume, which we know ASSUME, make it ass of you and me. We know that that is going to be something that is going to get me in trouble if I am not clarifying and making sure I understand. Okay, I don't want this poll. Okay. Okay, the next one. What's another powerful negotiation skill? Well, it's open-ended questions. So why do we ask open-ended questions as opposed to yes or no?
Gives people the opportunity to explain their position.
Right, right. We need to hear it to explain their position. Now, if you go to trial and you put somebody on the witness stand, you obviously don't want them to explain their position. You don't want anything out there. You're going to say, did you or did you not, you know, attend that concert on December 1st? You know, and then they try to explain, you say, just answer the question. But when you're in like a deposition, you want them to talk and talk and talk, right? So you could learn. So yeah, it's really important that we have open-ended questions when we're trying to learn something. So here are some of the answers. We clarify, like you were just saying, Kay, we clarify our underlying interests. We find out, like, tell me why that's so important to you. You know, it may seem to me that it's like negligible, right? But I'll say, why is that point so important to you? Well, it's important to me because he never did this in our marriage, let's say, you know? He was always just dismissing me. Okay, so now I get it. This is what was the issue. So it clarifies the underlying interest. If I know underlying interest, then I can create options that will meet that underlying interest. Maybe that's more important. Okay, I can check out assumptions, which we talked about a second ago, that if I assume that it's no big deal, and then, you know, my client says, well, it is a big deal, then I can find out why by asking, gee, what does this mean to you? Why is that so important? And then I can get specific answers instead of a yes or no. I'm going to get a specific answer. So I might ask, well, tell me more about that. Maybe they'll answer me and I'll say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then and if they're the type of people who don't give me a lot of answer, then I'll just say, help me understand that. Help me understand more. Tell me more about that. All right. It gives me information, and information is power to create a deal. If I know what they really, really want, okay, maybe what they really want is an apology, or maybe they really want to continue to do business with me, but they want me to apologize. Okay, it might not cost me anything. It might just cost me an apology. All right. I can ascertain commonalities and differences. In other words, I can find out, well, gee, you know what? I felt that way in my lifetime too. I get it. I really get it. Or gee, I didn't understand that. That's helpful to know. I just didn't see it that way. So again, this is such a powerful skill. And the types of questions are going to be like, who, what, where, when, how, why, those are big. But then even more than that, rather than doing that, like sometimes if I'll ask my husband, well, why? He goes crazy if I ask him too many whys. So then I have to, you know, change it up and say, can you explain that to me? Or tell me more, or help me understand, or what do you mean by that? Or please clarify. Those are all going to engender an answer that is more fulfilling than yes or no. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an example of CPR, okay? We're going to, C stands for content or facts or issues. P stands for procedure, R stands for relationship. So I'm going to give you an example of how I go about thinking about this in when I take notes on my preparation. So Here's an example of a friend of mine whose husband is trying to get a promotion or move up the ladder. So for his proposal might be, okay, what are his issues and his interests? These are just a few of them. Okay, to be promoted, he's going to think about it. Okay, what is my position to be promoted, to increase salary, to get more benefits, to move up the ladder, to be appreciated, and to increase morale, my morale. And then if we look on the other side, well, what might be my boss's or their boss's thoughts? Well, they just want to maintain status quo. They don't want any problems, or they want to save money. They don't want to pay anymore, or they want to limit the new benefits because it's costly for the company, or they want to limit the higher reporting. They want everything to come to them. And maybe they want to be appreciated, and maybe they want great morale for everybody. So again, I'm sure the list goes much longer, but these are just some of the ideas. So then, what are the open-ended questions that you or your partner in that situation would ask? Like the person who's looking for the, to move up the ladder might be saying, well, what specifically do you need in this position? Why do you need or want someone with this qualification or this background? What is most important to you for the person who would be hired for this position? And what else do we need to consider? What parts of my proposal may work? This might be what is your boss saying. If they say, well, I'll give you $1 an hour raise or $2 an hour raise or whatever. So you might say, well, geez, I don't know if it's worth me working so hard for $1 an hour more or whatever. So then you might say, well, what part of the proposal works and what doesn't? And then another one would be, how can I accommodate both of us? So again, I gave you an example, but you can use it obviously for anything in your life to make, what would my proposal be? What would their proposal be? You step into the shoes. Okay, so that's for content issues. The second one is P, procedure. How do you plan a procedure? Just for example, for me, I told you in mediation how I set up an ambiance that is very pleasing, very comfortable, very unlike going into a courtroom or unlike a deposition or unlike something that is a hearing. Okay, so you think about it, again, going back to my friend's husband who wants this higher position. Again, what is the procedure that he might think about? Okay, he might say, okay, I've got to get myself calm. I need to think about techniques that I'm going to use with this person. I want to meet Friday morning because the rest of the week is crazy. I don't want to speak with my immediate boss. I want to go to higher authority to speak with a decision maker. And, I want to bypass a lot of the protocol if I can, and I want to speed up the timeline so I know if I'm going to get this job, and I want to get to the next step right away. And then on the other side, all right, the person who is offering the position wants to be calm about it, doesn't want to be stressed. They want to meet in the afternoon when they don't have to worry about, what's going to be in the afternoon. They want to meet when they have time. They want to delegate some things so they don't have to deal with it. They want to stick to protocol and stick to requirements, and they want to follow their own timelines. So those are the kinds of things we're going to look at ahead of time, like what might the other side be thinking. And here's, again, what are some of the things I'm going to ask myself, or I'm going to think about asking the other side, or I'm going to ask other people about the other side. I know on my listserv, oftentimes I'll see, well, what does everyone know about this judge? Or what do you know about this expert? We want to know, how we're going to plan with that what kind of procedure we're going to have. So you ask yourself, what's my emotional state? What's going to work best for me? Are we going to meet at my office? Are we going to meet at the other person's office? Or are we going to meet at a coffee shop? Who else are the decision makers? Who needs to be involved? What are the steps that we're going to need to take? And you can ask each other these questions. What actions do we need to take? And what kind of constraints do we have on time? Okay? So then we get to the next, which is relationship. We've done content, procedure, now relationship. This is an important one just as much as the others. We want to think ahead of time. If I want to think about the person that I am going to be negotiating with, the one I'm going to be coming up with that I thought was going to be this afternoon that got postponed, I think about, okay, I'm linking my positive relationship that we've had for a long time and say we've really always had a very good relationship. It was open, it was honest, it was this. So I want to link that to the present one. I want to create a long-term good relationship or even a friendship, which is even better. Because if I'm building a friendship with other realtors or other attorneys or whoever I'm working with, that's going to be, again, money in the bank that I can take out later or they can take out later. And then I want to meet who the decision makers are, and I want to get respect and commitment. Okay, so what might the other side want? They're going to want to have a similar thing. They want a good relationship. They want cooperation. They want to maintain loyalty and commitment and a wise choice so that if they're going to be the boss, they want someone that they can count on, who's reliable and trustworthy, and they want to be respected as the boss. So, then we go to the open-ended questions. Again, these are just samples. What do we need to know about each other? What are our mutual goals? What do we know? How can we connect? How can we connect socially? How can, you might say that to yourself, how can I connect socially? Maybe we'll go for a cup of coffee, all right? And what assumptions do we need to clarify? Do we assume that because the other people in the running are related to this person, that means that person's going to get the job? We have to think about all those things. Okay, so what is your success negotiation agenda? Okay. So it's important ahead of time for you to have an agenda. I mean, I walk into my mediations always, no matter what kind of a mediation it is, I have an agenda. If I've been doing divorce mediation, my summary letter from the past sets forth an agenda for the next meeting. Who's going to do what, when, how, right? If I'm doing a business negotiation, I engage with the other attorneys to say, what is our agenda? If I send out an agenda, then I ask people, okay, what do you need to add to this agenda so we don't have surprises? All right. So again, the first thing I'm going to remember is before that meeting, I'm going to take my CPR strategy. I'm going to know what is my content, what are my issues, what are my facts, what procedure am I going to use, how am I going to dress? I remember I had a mediation with all these Chinese vendors that were fighting, and I wore red. And I had little red envelopes that I told them there was a gift inside, which there was. When they settled, they were going to get the red envelope. So, I did all this research to figure out what might help this to be a more successful mediation. They got a kick out of it. But anyway, the R is for relationship. How am I going to build that relationship before I get there? And how am I going to negate any past problems with that person? How can I start again? I might need to even apologize. I might say, last time we had a challenge between us, and I apologize if there was any misunderstanding, or if I offended you, or if I misunderstood what you said. Kind of break that from the past. The next one is create a positive energy with yourself. Get yourself up. If you have to do some breathing exercises, for me, I meditate every morning. So before I walk into a mediation, I take a few minutes to just get centered. I actually breathe into my solar plexus. I envision people with smiles on their faces, because that sets my energy. And if my energy is contagious, you've all been in a room where people are angry. You walk in the room, you could just cut that room with a knife, right? Because the energy is so negative. So no matter what the energy is, you can come in with your own energy and you can transform it. It is contagious. So we don't want to have the negative one. Number 3, ask what the other party needs or wants. You can start out with positions a little bit, but get off of them right away. Get off of the positions right away. So if somebody tells me their position, I go, oh, okay, so why do you have that position? What's important to you about that position? Tell me more about that. Okay, so again, exchange opening positions or opening statements to set a tone, but then be willing to move off of it. Now, I'm not talking about these one-time negotiations where you're going to buy a car, but even when you're going to buy a car, you want to have a good relationship, especially if you want to go back and have them add things for you, or you were going to get your car serviced there. Even one-time negotiations should be positive. I speak Spanish fluently, and when I go to Mexico and I'm negotiating and I'm buying jewelry or whatever I'm buying, I want to build a nice relationship with these people. I want them to think highly of an American, talking to them and having fun with them. And I want to have a good relationship where they'll say, you know what, I'll come back tomorrow and I'm going to bring you some jewelry, some silver jewelry that you're really going to love, and I'll give you a good deal because you speak Spanish. This is the kind of thing you want to do, is build up. And, you know, even when I start out with a negotiation, they may say, okay, $50, and I'll say 20, you know, and then we start talking and get off those positions until we come to something else. So again, even in a one-time deal, you may be using these skills. And then we talked about using open-ended questions. I prepare a lot of questions ahead of time so I don't forget. I want to know, like, what I don't know about the other side, what I don't know about the other side's client, what I don't know about what they're thinking, what their timeline is. I want to ask, and I'm afraid that I'm going to forget those unless I write them down. So when it's like before you do a deposition, if you're an attorney, you have all your questions written down. Obviously, you're going to add new ones in it, depending on what they say, but at least you can check that off. Oh, I didn't forget that. I didn't forget that. And then you're going to brainstorm options with the other party or parties. Say, okay, now that we know what everything's going on, we know your interest, we know your interest, we know your interest, what can we do so we can satisfy all those? Let's just brainstorm. Let's everybody just come up with an idea. And we won't value it or won't judge it till the very end. Okay?
All right, 5 minutes.
Okay, we're just about done anyway, so that's good. And then build a common bridge to analyze options. Just say, that's a great idea. You know, I think that would work. The only part of it is this part. How can we make that work? And then memorialize with a detailed writing and a clarification. So in other words, even if you didn't get a deal that's complete, you can write the other party and say, it was great meeting with you. We came up with some ideas. Here's my understanding of what we did agree to, and here's where we still really aren't on the same page. We all agree that we want to get a deal. We all agree that we want to do this by the end of the year, before the new year. We all agree this. So you can memorialize all the stuff you agree on, and then just say, here are the issues that are still left open. So let's meet next week. What works for you? Okay, so I am open to your questions, but these are some of the questions that people often ask me when I do these kinds of programs. So I'm going to wait to do mine because I only have 5 minutes. I want to be able to answer anything you want to ask. Anybody want to tell me a question or a comment or what you do that works for you? Okay. All right. So here's one that I always get. You know, how can you be confident in negotiation and be assertive? Well, for me, to be honest with you, the only way I'm ever going to feel confident is if I know what I'm doing, if I've prepared, if I know the issues, if I have a procedure, and if I know about the person, you know, find out as much as I can about the person so that I can walk in and say, hey, you know, I found out that you actually grew up on Long Island, New York. And do you know what? I went to Hofstra to get my master's degree. So the more I find out, I'm going to just stop this here. The more I find out about the person, the more I'm going to feel comfortable and confident that we've got a good relationship. And I'll just take a couple more, just that may come to your mind. How do you deal with a really aggressive person? This is hard because our amygdala that we talked about before is going to go into fight, flight, or flee. So if you know that person is difficult, if you know that person is aggressive, you need to really manage your own calm, your own energy, and then you cannot react. So you need to practice thinking about them saying something terrible to you and you just saying, I understand you feel that way. Tell me more about that. Or if it gets really bad, you need to be able to say, you know, this isn't working for us right now. Let's make a new appointment to meet when we can be mutually respectful. I mean, you might have to do that. I'll take one more here. How do I know if I've left something out on something on the table? For me, there's two ways. One is if I've made my my list of CPR, and before we end something, I go, oh, gee, you know, there's one other issue we didn't talk about. So I know that. And then the other thing, I know if I left something on the table, if I ask more questions and I need more answers. So those are that. So I don't want to keep you because you might have work. I had some other ones, but I remember this by President Kennedy said, never negotiate out of fear, but never fear to negotiate. So we can't be fearful. We have to be really, really prepared so we're not fearful, and then we can't be afraid of negotiating for what we want. So I just wanted to tell you, if you know anyone or if you're interested in the new year, I'm going to start a once a month coaching where it'll be kind of like a mastermind for negotiation. So people who have tough negotiations, we can work together to find solutions. So if you're interested in that, in doing a mastermind and getting some coaching on a webinar that would be like once a month on a certain day, let me know and we'll have fun doing that. So do I have any questions from anybody or comments? You still there?
Thank you, Mari. That was very informative, very helpful.
Oh, good, good. Well, thank you for joining.
It's very obvious you have a wealth of experience and wisdom. I look forward to getting to talking to you.
Oh, well, that's so sweet of you. Thank you. Yeah, 33 years of trying to learn how to do all this. Yeah, so hopefully, yeah, there's a lot of things I don't know about, but I do feel pretty comfortable with negotiation.
There's a lot to be learned from you.
Thank you so much.